This is the 18th season of Bass Talk Live. With your host, Matt Pangrath. BTL is brought to you by Lorraine's, Bass Cat Boats, AFCO, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, and Pro Guide Batteries.
PTL, coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. It is Tuesday, May 3rd, and we have a good show today. Bradley Hallman will be joining us for a open recap and open breakdown from Ross Barnett. We've kind of been doing these things after every open. Now I'm going to come out with a video that kind of goes over the whole month of opens that I fished. It started with Cherokee, then a week off, then the James River, then a week off, then Ross Barnett, and now we actually don't have one until for about 6 weeks until we head to Oneida at the beginning of July. Actually, over the 4th of July weekend, which is going to be a really interesting tournament because if you have been up north during like June, July, August, September, kind of those 4 months, if you have a boat, you use it specifically on a holiday weekend, and with all the marinas and people that like to fish Oneida and pleasure boat Oneida and relax on Oneida, it will be absolutely jam-packed. Kind of the issue that we ran into with at Ross Barnett, just not everyone will be fishing at Oneida, but we'll only get like a day and a half of practice since it's over the 4th of July weekend. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But a really good show today because it kind of went in two different directions. Bradley actually had a really good tournament in this event, finished 14th. In this event, which then jumped him up to 8th in the Opens overall. They take the top 3 in the Opens to the Elite Series at the end of the year, and we're basically halfway through the season, 4 down, 5 to go. But we have some video of how I approached the event and then how Bradley approached the event there on Ross Barnett. And believe it or not, I've got video that we'll get into on this. We started... had no idea because we didn't room together, didn't really talk during practice. But I started... Andrew Upshaw was 30 yards on one side of me, and Brad Hallman was 30 yards on the other side of me, and I was like right in the middle. So it was interesting how we all kind of went different directions from that starting spot. But some really good videos, some really good learning experiences that went down on Ross Barnett. Like I said, I finished 102nd. And Bradley finished 14th. So that dropped me down to 22nd in the overall, about 100 points out of the top 3. And then Hallman is like 25, 30 points. But a lot of fishing left. Also a lot of fishing left in the BPT that is taking place on Lake of the Ozarks. I watched a little bit of this. Really interesting to watch these guys sight fish, and you're seeing why guys... are the best in the world at it. Alton Jones and Shaw Grigsby, the Dean Rojas, and then in today's action, this is the day 2 Group B of qualifying to get to the cut. Jacob Wheeler is kind of running away with this thing. He's got a 20-pound lead right now heading into it, but Jesse Wiggins, 63 pounds over 2 days and 24 fish, so 12 fish a day. But I think weather's kind of hampered him, maybe a little bit of wind there, but a lot of sight fishing going on, just like there was a lot of sight fishing going on at Grand in the Toyota series that went down there. But I was thinking, watching these sight fishing events, and of course I have like a sight fishing box made up and everything, but it's been a minute since I've been in a tournament where I've actually been able to do actual sight fishing, pull down, see the fish, look at the fish, and catch it. I caught a couple of bedfish on Ross Barnett, but just because of the water color, I wasn't able to see them very well. So that was that's what's going on the BPT Elite Series off for a couple weeks. before I think they're on Lake Fork next. So Do want to remind everybody I am headed on Wednesday night. I'm headed up to Minnesota for the Dick Hiley St. Jude's Bass Classic. If you want to make a donation to St. Jude's for that tournament, there is a link still directly on the front page of basszone.com. 100% of those proceeds go directly to St. Jude. And I guess there's a couple really cool dinners, banquet stuff that they'll go. I think it's the 24th year they've done this. I'm really excited to get up there, but they'll have some actual kids who were benefited and directly from the donations from this tournament. So head up to Minnesota, fish practice on Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, and then I'm actually home for a couple weeks. And the first thing I'm going to have to do is purchase a lawnmower, because now that I have a 2-acre yard, I still don't have a lawnmower. So we're going to take a very quick break. I see Bradley has got his little girl off to school. He is back in the studio. We have some exciting game film to break down from Ross Barnett, and we will be back BTL on a Tuesday.
The time for you to get Active Target Live Sonar is now. Purchase Active Target or an Active Target Elite FS bundle between May 1st and July 4th. You'll get $200 cash back and change the way you fish. Target fish with Active Target and let Elite FS handle the rest. Active Target is also compatible with HDS Live and HDS Carbon. Active Target by Lowrance.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Welcome back, BTL, on a Tuesday, and there is the man in the office, fresh off a 14th place finish at the Open on Ross Barnett, Mr. Bradley Hallman. How we doing, Brad?
Wonderful. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. You got the coffee going?
I do. I love my coffee in the morning, dude.
You got the kids off to school?
I do. Last one starts. First one leaves the house at 6:30 a.m. and the last one leaves at 8:30. It is a 2-hour ordeal in the morning, and it is a 2-hour ordeal in the evening.
That sounds exciting.
I know. It's like, why they got to be so spread out?
We're doing the 4th Bassmaster Open recap today, and it is it's the first one where you've had a good derby, man. I mean, they've been kind of set up, and it's the first one we've had where a 14th place finish. You know, you had a 12th place finish, nearly made the final cut to end the year last year on Grand Lake, but some solid finishes to start the season: 57th on Kissimmee, 56th on Cherokee, 96th on the James River, and you really saved yourself on day 2 here on Ross Barnett. So just kind of break down your thought process going into it, because I think if anybody knows how you fish, your style of fishing, Ross Barnett during the spawn early in the year, high muddy water is kind of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I don't know how high this lake gets. I mean, if you look at the way the docks are constructed and where all the buildings are built on it may get a little bit, but they can obviously dump some water out of that thing. It doesn't fluctuate like our lakes do. I did notice that it was a little bit high when we got there, 3 or 4 inches, but it's a vegetation deal, not really a flooded bush deal. The thing that I enjoyed about that place, dude, is like, it's one of those places that after day 1, it doesn't matter if you're in the top 10 or if you're in 110th. Like 14, 15 pounds is a lot. And, you can make some big moves. And, even if you caught 14 or 15 pounds the first day, you could go out there and catch 1 or 2 fish and really, really drop in the standings. So I like places like that. I like where you're not really ever out of it because there are 25-pound bags swimming there. And that was one thing that I really liked about it. I knew that day 2 was going to be a lot tougher. Before we went down there, I kind of just sectioned off the bottom half of the lake because the research and stuff, there's been numerous top 10s made either out of that marina or out of that big arm that goes off to the east at the south end of the lake. And I felt like between the two, it gave you a lot more to fish versatility wise, right? So like there's a couple of marinas. There's a lot of rock riprap. If it's a post spawn deal and you get a shad spawn going. And then also on the flip side, you had all the vegetation and pads in that arm to the east, the same as what you have up the lake. I do believe that the biggest population of fish is up that lake, you know, and especially on that east side going up and then even up in the river. But I really normally would leave to where I can start practice on a Saturday, and I cut this one back. I didn't want to spend that much time there because I knew I was only going to focus on a certain part of this lake. And I really didn't know what the marina was going to do until tournament day. And I didn't really want to. I went in there the first afternoon that I got down there, and I think
First thing you did was see me.
I did. Yeah, you told Upshaw or somebody that you were putting all of your fairy wands away. This is what I heard through the grapevine, and that you were going to fish big rods, big baits, and you were going to stay after the mud all week. And I show up at about 1:00 on Sunday, and I see you by 2:30 in the marina with spinning rod. And I was like, yeah, I don't think he stuck to that plan. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to get my feel around in there and see what all it had to offer. And I felt like the morning time was the best time to be in there if the shad spawn was firing. And I wanted to wait till tournament day to kind of fill that out. So I just kind of looked around at the marinas, the docks, which ones were floating, which ones were pole docks, which ones, you know, sit out over the channel, which ones don't. And just kind of looked at stuff like that so that first morning of the tournament, I could kind of buzz around in there pretty quick and try to steal some of the low hanging fruit. That was really my game plan going into the tournament.
It was surprising to me that you weren't like, forget all that stuff. You got a bunch of guys like Matt and obvious stuff, and the fish are going to get picked off of the riprap and out of the marina, and I'm better at every one than flipping and frogging, so I'm going to go into the froggiest, flippiest looking stuff, and I'm going to spend 4 days and try to figure that out. Like, it kind of threw me for a loop when I saw you in there, and then I saw you on day 1 too, about how, I guess, open you were fishing, you know, kind of more main lake open stuff, the docks, the marinas. It surprised me. I thought you were getting away from your strengths by doing that. Obviously it worked out, but I thought that was an interesting game plan.
Well, the size of the lake, right, is not very big. When I read that this thing's like 13 miles long and, you know, it's 5 miles wide at its widest point, it's just not very big. And all those places with all the grass and the vegetation, all the flipping stuff, was going to fish real small. And if we were on the tail end of the spawn, I mean, like the end of it, like if the shad spawn was really going and all that was happening, I didn't want to be trying to catch what was left of what was leaving. I wanted to be on the front end of what was coming. And dude, I mean, coming from Oklahoma, I enjoy dock fishing and marina fishing, and I feel like I really understand it. Now, with that being said, I wasn't coming in there to fish with a spinning rod very much. I wanted to come in there, and that's what I did in the tournament, and it didn't work. But I came in there to throw top water in the morning, a swim jig or a chatterbait or a spinnerbait on those docks with a shad spawn going, and cover a lot of water and try to get some of that low-hanging fruit. I wanted to do it with big rod and big line, and when it didn't work, I got out. I saw you in there, and Kenta was in there. I saw Kenta actually catch a keeper. I think he was the only boat I saw catch a keeper the first morning out of there. And what is there, 25, 30 guys in there? But that's a big place. Yeah, there are about 30 boats in there. It's a big place. But I didn't see very many bit rods, and I saw absolutely zero sign of shad spawn. I didn't have anything following my baits, and I had very little action on the top water. So I gave it a good hour and a half or so, and made my way around there, and I even threw a big swim bait some in there. But that was kind of why I chose that over the flipping to start, because if that was going to go down, I wanted to be on the front end of that.
Mm-hmm. You did
because
catch
like
one early.
I did.
We'll get to the video.
But that was kind of my reasoning of why I didn't want to go flip at a piece of cane that 500 other boats had flipped at for the course of the week.
Fair amount. Fair assessment. So this is just there I am there. You said you just threw
I thought that was funny. I put it in there that morning because that's the start of my camera, and bang, there's Pinger.
And then this is early in the morning. Now you keyed really heavily. I did not in the marina. You seemed to key on the seawalls.
I felt like when I was in there that day that I spent in there, the bites that I got were spawn related fish, meaning they were 2 foot or less. Now, like I say, I wanted to fish that thing with big baits and big rods. This is a good fish. This is like a 2.5 pounder. And
Really?
This happened first thing. And I thought, well, maybe this thing is going to go off. But like I said, the fish was still related more to seawall. I caught a 4 pounder out of there when I went in there during the day in practice on a seawall.
So you left there.
Yeah.
With
Like I
one
say,
fish?
I mean, you've got 30 boats to kind of judge off of, and I'd gone in there with all that big stuff and it wasn't happening. So it was time for me to leave. So my backup plan all week had been to go do exactly what you're talking about, stuff that's more in my wheelhouse. Now, the problem with all of this is, while yes, there was a lot of bites down this stuff in practice, you yourself even said that you fished this stretch of grass, and
Yes, on day one.
you did on day one.
Yes.
And I spent a lot of time here on day one, and there was a lot of fish here. There really was, but there was a lot of boats and a lot of pressure.
Like how many guys do you think went down that bank on day one?
Well, I don't know, because I never saw you, and you told me you fished there. I was there right before this video was taken. Castledine had just pulled in on me. He was boat number 1, and he's like, dude, the water has fallen. I was boat 1, and I started right here. That's what he said. And he said, I never had a bite. He said, so it's not all pressure. He said, it's the water falling too. Just wanted to give you a heads up. And he's right. I mean, that was a big part of it as well. The water had fallen, over probably.
I never noticed that. Never noticed it.
Yeah.
You just noticed it based on the depth, or based on, was there a watermark on the reeds, or?
No, I didn't really notice it on the watermark on the reeds. I noticed it just when I pitched in there, how much shorter time it took for my bait to get to the bottom. Like it was definitely shallower. And then in front of some of the reeds, like your boat could barely float. Whereas, a few days earlier, you didn't have any problem.
Looks like a good one.
Yeah, it's 2 pounder, 2.5 pounder. I'm not as good as you as taking my fish. And I got to go back to the chest cam 24/7 because I just can't. I'm in tournament mode, dude. It's not like I just turn to the camera with a fish and go, look at this one. And I'm making a YouTube video. My mind is always on how do I get the next bite.
I got you. Execution wise, did you have issues putting those in the boat out of the grass and the reeds?
Yeah, I don't want to complain about it a lot in this show.
Well, I don't think it's complaining, because I was complaining about it, and then everyone I talked to had the exact same issue. Because typically you just have a bad day and it plummets you. But I mean, I talked to 5 or 6 guys, and they were all like, dude, I lost multiple 2 to 4 pounders.
Right. So it was a combination. I did. And I put some in the video here because that was pretty much my week, was lost fish. We can get to that. But this one right here, look at the size of this one, dude. This is day one.
Flipping.
I only weighed in 4 keepers day one. Missed the top 10. This fish is top 10 fish. You put that fish in the boat, you make it easy. I hit this fish right on time too. This fish doesn't bite when I pitch in there. This fish, it takes a while. It's been in there. I'm soaking it. Go back to the very beginning. Like I pitch it in there, and like I'm looking around, trying to figure out how many thousand boats are going down my other reed stretch. And I watch, like this fish bites right there. And it's 3.5, 4 pounder. Anyway, so what's going on and is the spawn, and they're biting like bedfish, right? They're like, either they grab it and they run 1,000 miles an hour and you can't hardly catch up to them, or they're biting just the tail, or they don't have the entire bait in their mouth. They're just picking it up to move it, or they're just tat, and then you can't get them to bite again. The spawn in combination with they've seen 1,000 baits by this point, along with the water falling. I mean, all three of those things made those fish less susceptible to take the entire bait. Now, I made a huge mistake this week. And when I was driving home, it's always 2020 when you're driving home. I know how I could have fixed some of this. I made a mistake, and I went against the grain of what I normally do. But in practice, I started flipping, and I was just flipping fluorocarbon, my 25-pound test, sunline shooter that I always flip on wood and stuff. But when I'm in vegetation, it's a rule of thumb to use braid for multiple reasons. One, the braid, when you're around rock and wood and docks like we are here in Oklahoma, if your line goes up over a rock or over a dock or over a willow limb, when you set the hook, it doesn't give, like it's solid. So there's not much stretch there.
Right.
And the fluorocarbon just flows easier in and out of wood than it does vegetation. It tends to get hung up in the bark and stuff, and it's just aggravating as all get out. But when you go somewhere like this, there is absolutely no reason not to be flipping braid. And when you set the hook in those cattails, whether it's over one or lily pad or whatever, grass, anything, it does give. And so then you end up with more slack in your line. I lost, I don't know, 3 or 4 fish both days. Any of them could have helped me. And just the difference of going from fluorocarbon to braid probably puts 2 or 3 of those fish in my boat. So probably half of them.
You think? So here was my reasoning why I went with fluorocarbon, and I was flipping the 22 just because I don't give them the onions quite like you do. I was thinking I wanted to be as stealthy as possible because of the pressure. And almost every time I was working it, it was over some sort of vegetation, so I didn't want any extra noise, even though I was not worried about visibility. But also a lot of the flipping bites I was getting were in less than a foot of water.
Right.
So even though there is no stretch on braid, I mean, you're putting a lot of force and pressure on a fish with no water resistance on it. It's basically like setting a hook in your backyard when it's that shallow. So I was afraid of blowing a hole, blowing a hole through those fish, and then them coming off instead of pinning them with that fluorocarbon in that shallow of water. I thought I could still get a good hook in those fish.
Yeah. We should have been flipping braid, dude. I'm telling you, without a shadow of a doubt.
No, I mean, in hindsight, obviously, I went. I had seven bites in the grass over 2 days, and I caught 3 of them. That's not good. And I saw 2 of them, and they were both over 3.5 pounds on day 2.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
I had lost one just before that video clip there. I'd lost another one that was 3.5 pounds. And she was one of the ones where she grabs it and she's halfway to the boat, the second you pitch it in there and you're like trying to catch up to her. And it was tough.
I mean, I don't know why after that I didn't just have one rigged up with braid too and flip it, because naturally the way where I was flipping, and you'll see later on, I mean, it's a braid type area. That was a mistake on my part too. But did you also notice it wasn't like you were missing them on the hook set? You would hook them. You would hook them for 2 or 3 seconds. It wasn't like one of those deals where it was like hook set, fish off. Like you would load up on them to where you could see them. That was one of the first times that those fish would be on for a number of seconds before they came off. You think that's nipping it?
I'm telling you from sight fishing for years that's what it is. They got the bait half in their mouth, half of it hanging out. And so you're not getting a good clean. You might even get like, just a piece of skin. I mean, every fish is going to be a little bit different. Like I say, some of them, a majority of them are grabbing it and they're just sprinting with it as fast as they can go. Some of them are, sitting there with it and tap, but each fish is a little bit different. And it is a combination of all those things that we talked about. I mean, the pressure, the fact that they've seen 5,000 Texas rigs by that point, the fact that the water's falling has made them more finicky. It's a combination of all those things. And then you throw in the spawning bite on top of that. I mean, dude, I went to Hefner right before we went down here just to kind of mess around. I knew fish were spawning, but I didn't want to mess with them. I really went over there to work with live scope inside the marina. because that marina's a lot like the one down there. And anyway, needless to say, live scope marina, I couldn't do anything. So I start beating around the bank, and I've got this big jig tied on, and I'm not changing because I'm not messing with these sight fish. Same thing though. At the end of the day, I had 9 bites on Hefner, and I caught 1 fish because of the spawn. Now that's no pressure, no nothing, but that's the way that they're biting it. And it's because they're sitting on the bed spawning.
So how do you combat that? How do you actually get
I was flipping a 1/2 ounce jig. So one of the ways you combat it is go with a smaller bait, a BFE with a 3/16 ounce weight, a lighter weight, on the bed. A lot of times, I'm talking about fish that you can't see. Mm-hmm. They tend to, that's why the weightless wacky worm and the weightless trick stick or whatever, Cinco, whatever you're throwing has always been big through the years, because they will take a bait that doesn't have any weight to it at all, and a lot of times they'll suck that whole thing in. But it's usually things such as that you can get them to hook up better.
What size weight were you flipping with?
3/16.
So you were flipping a lightweight.
3/16 or quarter. I had both rigged up on the deck, but I didn't go any higher than a quarter ever.
Okay. And I went with I had a quarter, but I also had a 5/16 because especially on day 2, like the edges were toast. Like you couldn't get a bite at an edge. You had to, and it was windy. Remember how windy it was on day 2 also? Mm-hmm. And you had to pitch way back in these little holes. So it's just a lot able to get that BFE, that bait, way more accurate back in there with just that little bit of 1/8 ounce extra weight. And I didn't think it affected the bite because I was fishing a hard bottom area, so I wasn't worried about it going down into the silt. But it obviously affected how much of the bait they got in their mouth. You also did a little bit of cranking on day 1.
Well, actually, I put that video in there because this is the end of day 1, and I run out here to the main lake and I start looking at this post-spawn stuff. This is a really nice fish. This is a 2.5 pounder, and I catch this at the end of the day. And so this kind of gets my wheels turning for day 2. I'm like, hey, I got to figure it out. Like, these fish have moved out here. This makes sense. They're sitting out here on these flat points outside these spawning coves. So I rig up like 3 little johns. I've got all these square bills tied on. Like, I'm ready to rock, on day 2, because I think that there's a potential that I've seen the light here, but not the case. I found out day 2. But it is something going on, and I did learn something from it.
So you finished day 1 in 105th place. Yeah. 4 fish for 8.4.
Yep. And like I said, I had plenty of shots at 5 fish that run me way on up there, but just wasn't able to execute.
And I had a similar day, except it went really kind of as planned. I had called you. I was a little. I had found a grass flipping deal, reed flipping deal, but I also knew, when I was in there the first time, there were 10 boats in there. I went back to that 3 days, and I didn't fish it. I only fished it. I fished it 1 day through to figure out my bites, and I'll tell you when we get into day 2 where I made my mistakes, because I definitely learned from this.
Okay.
But I'm curious to see how you think I approach this. I went back in. I said, this looks like a good area, hard bottom, and I got 2-3 bites right away, and I catch them, and it's a buck that's peeing, that's not a keeper, and then one's like a 3 and one's like a 2 3/4. And this is on Monday, and there's 4 or 5 other boats in there. And then I put the hitchhiker on, even though it's Monday, and I shake off like 8 or 9 in a 40-yard stretch. And I'm like, this is the deal. But I was like, I wonder how much pressure it's going to get, because it was on the east bank about 3 to 500 yards from where Lee Livesey caught his 25 pounds, and a lot of the big bags went out of. So I literally, where I was up on the bank flipping, I could just turn my head to the right and see 40 boats. I'm not exaggerating, Brad, 40 boats. And I don't know how those guys drag the pads. I know there's little ditches in there. I know what they're doing. I know how they're catching them. That's not me. I'll never be able to do that. It's just not my style. I don't understand it. I didn't grow up doing that. Dragging a 1/4 ounce Carolina rig and 3 foot of water on a ditch around pad stems and 0 visibility just is not how I want to go down in flames in an open. Granted, yeah, there were tons of bags that came out of there, tons of checks, but I knew I was around a ton. And then on top of it, there were 15 or 20 boats milling around the bank flipping the same stuff. So I knew if I was in there on Monday afternoon, Monday evening, and that went down like that, like I wasn't the first boat to go through there. So I start there Tuesday morning, and I make like 4 pitches and shake 2 off. And then I just kind of roll out about 100 yards and watch, and I just watch boats going up and down the bank. And I'm like, well, they're catching the ones that I'm shaking off. And I just did not understand how many fish were in that area, but it was my only area that I found that I could get flipping bites in. And I'd gone in the marina, and I'd had a couple bites. So Tuesday in the marina, I go in there, and I'm like, well, let's just pretend this isn't Ross Barnett, and let's pull our best John soak up. So I pull out the jerk bait, and on every cross beam on those docks, I could pull a school of fish out. And I caught probably 6 or 7 shorts, and then I caught a 2.5 pounder. And I'm like, that's awesome. Yeah. And when I am dinking and dunking and going through it, I like to figure out what my ratio is. So I'll catch a lot of fish because I'm fishing high percentage baits. They're going to get a lot of bites, and I know there's a lot around it. So instead of just catching one and saying, oh, it's 6 or 7, I said, I'm going to catch 2 keepers out of here and see what it is. So I catch 4 or 5 more shorts, and then I actually snagged like a 16-incher in the back. And I said, all right, well, I need to catch about 5 shorts for every keeper on this. And that was what I went in the marina to do. I had not caught any I'd like caught 1 on a wacky worm and not caught any on a drop shot, none of that stuff. So when I started day 1, I was planning on throwing a jerk bait down to the cross beams, bouncing it off the cross beams, and going through 15, 20 fish to get my keepers. And it did not pan out like that. So here's the start of the morning, and I thought this was really interesting. This is the start of the morning on day 1. Here I am, I'm jerk baiting it. If you notice this boat right here, that's you.
Yeah.
So had you already caught the keeper off this back wall right there?
Yes.
That's where that keeper came from, right off that back wall on a jerk bait.
On a topwater, on spook.
On a spook. So that's you going up there. You're doing your thing. I'm doing my thing. And then here's the other thing on the other side of this dock. That's Andrew Upshaw.
Really?
So every time I'm going down, I see Andrew Upshaw 30 yards on one side, and you're 30 yards on the other side. But that never panned out for me, Brad. I never caught a keeper on the jerk bait.
I saw you catch one like right there. No, you lost one right there.
I lost one on it. It was a borderline fish. I don't think it would have kept or not. But then, I just started going around, and I said I'm going to spend 3 hours in the marina. And I thought I could probably get a bite an hour if I spent 3 hours in there. And just based on how I was boat 170, and based on how unsure I was about how beat up that grass would be when I got there, I did not want to run up the lake idle for 5 minutes to get back in there and then be in a complete clown show.
Yeah.
And know that I would not be able to slow down, when in the back of my mind I thought I could come in here and catch me 10 pounds. So I went with my strengths. So, first cast with a drop shot, I actually was yelling at these geese. If you notice, like I was trying to pitch back there, and the geese kept getting in my way with the babies.
Well, they got babies back there. They were yelling at you too.
Yep. So there's one. Put one in the boat. This is probably 45 minutes into the morning, just on a little drop shot. He kept. And then I caught a couple more, and then I pulled out that worm, and here I am. You can see I'm looking at the forward-facing sonar, and here's what told me, this is cool. So I was like, there's got to be something around this pole, because this bobber was here, right?
Yep.
But it wasn't stuck on anything. It was kind of free floating. So I was like, well, there must be a brush pile there, because they sit on this dock wall here and cast out there. So I'm looking at my forward-facing sonar, and sure enough, there's a little brush pile down there, and then boom, I catch one. Now here's what I also didn't realize, because of the watercolor. You see these beams right here? Mm-hmm. There's another set of beams like 2 foot under the water.
Ooh,
and
that's good stuff.
It gets caught up in those beams. So I take my time. I'm throwing 12-pound test on this. I take my time. I get up there. It's a good fish. I still have it on. Never lose tension. Drop my rod. Go down underneath the beam. Fish comes up. Fish jumps at the side of the boat. Pulls the wacky worm off.
Oh my God.
So I've got 3 at this point, and it is 9:45, and I wanted to be out of the marina at 10. So I turned to my co-angler and I said, I know I can catch a limit in here based on what I've just seen because I've gone around, I've gotten some bites. I said, but that could be a critical fish. He said, why? I said, because that could keep me in here an extra hour until I get my limit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It gets you kind of behind.
Right.
So I re-rig, and this is kind of cool. I've got 3. This is the very, very next cast. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to let this area kind of settle down because there are some fish in there. So I pick up a Ned rig, and I get it hung up, and as soon as it comes off, boom, I catch one. So there's number 4. And I'm like, okay, that made up for that one. They were about the same size. It's a 2-pounder. Boat flip it. It comes off in midair. Watch, you can see the Ned rig fly. See the Ned rig fly past?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There. And it lands in the bottom of the boat. I'm like, all right, so I made up for it, right?
Yep.
So there's 4. So then I re-rig I weigh it, I re-rig the wacky worm, I cast over, this is vintage Grand Lake, I've got my little wacky worm deal going, boom, there's number 5, but I can't reel him, he's about a 2 1/4 pounder, so I have to go over the rail, come in, I'm throwing it on 14 because I know that there's watercolor, boom, there it is, there's my limit fish.
Awesome.
And that's a pretty good one.
It is.
Got him pegged right in the top of the mouth. So now I'm out of there at 10. Everything.
So it did work out.
Yeah, everything worked out, and I got out of there at 10. Like I said, then we'll go over what we did on day 2 after we take a break after this. But then I run to my grass, and it is, I mean, there's a boat there. There's boats everywhere. But I know this stuff has been fished a lot. I mean, like a lot. And I'm pitching it way back up in there. And I've already got 5, but I'm fine. I can power pull down. I can fish this stuff because I'm calm. There's my one-handed hook set, like you said. Small cull. Small cull for the day. But what you don't see here, and this is interesting. So I fished, this area is an area that Cody Bird was in. And he finished, 11th, 12th?
Yeah, Cody had a good tournament.
And this is day 1, so as I'm culling this fish, Cody Bird idles past me and starts fishing this stuff right up here, which is fine. There's a ton of boats in here. It would take me 20 minutes to fish this horseshoe here to get out to where he was. But then by the time I get out to this horseshoe, he leaves and goes back around me right to where my boat's sitting right now, and he catches one almost 5.
Yeah.
And I know this because I had his co-angler on day 2, and after I was done fishing it, he goes, hey, you know where you started on day 2? He goes, I didn't want to say anything at the time. He goes, because I watched him on day 2 on day 1 catch a couple fish. He said that spot, he goes, as soon as we idled right past you, he goes, we dropped it, and Cody caught a 5. And I said, right there where I was power pull down culling? And he goes, yeah, right there. He goes, it was unbelievable. He goes, you literally just left there. And I was like, oh, that's nice. So I wonder if I maybe like caught the buck or something. I don't know what the deal was, but there's another big one in there that I left on day 1. And then this spot started to get a ton of pressure. So I made a move, and I have not caught a fish on a frog, hadn't gotten a frog bite, nothing was going on with the frog. But is this just bad luck, Brad?
Yes.
Of what's about to happen. I showed you this clip before. I'm throwing the frog in like 6 inches of water. And I'll show you what happened.
Show them where your bait is right now.
My bait is right here by my calf.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get back there further. There's my bait working. And I go to pick my trolling motor up, and one eats it, and I didn't see it. And then I was late on the hook set. It was about a 2 1/2 pounder, 3 pounder, and it jumps off. Like right there. Watch, right? Look in this area right here. When this happens, I look down, boom, he eats it. I didn't see it. And then I like double clutch and hesitate, and he comes off on the jump.
It's always the no look, man. Anytime you look to the left, the right, you look down, it's guaranteed you get a bite whenever it's tough like this. The no look pattern. Just look away next time you're throwing a frog.
Like, what are the odds of that?
It seems like it happens to all of us.
And then, of course, I did it with long pauses on the frog for 2 hours, and I never had another bite. So I finished day one in 78th place, which sets us up for a very interesting day two. Any other thoughts on day one before we take a quick break and then move on with day two?
It was just a tough day, dude. I mean, it was tough on everybody. The things that I noticed at the end of day one, the later flights caught them. And I felt like the fish bit better in the afternoon than they did the morning. I didn't know why, but we'll get into that on day two because I think I figured out why.
All right, BTL on a Tuesday. We'll be back after this.
I've made my living on the water for over 20 years.
For 14 years.
For over 23 years.
I've worn a bunch of different clothing brands over the years.
Some companies big.
And some companies small.
All of them said they were making clothing for us.
But none of them knew us.
None of them were us. Except for one. Except for one.
Except one.
AFCO.
AFCO.
AFCO. AFCO.
Fishing isn't part of us. It is us.
The KVD 100 jerkbait. 15 different colors. A perfect combination of roll, wiggle, and flash. Increased castability. 3D eyes. Premium black nickel hooks. KVD. Tie one on. Striking lures.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? Well, the Bass Tank is here to help you. The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Welcome back, BTL on a Tuesday. Bradley Hallman breaking down his 14th place finish on Ross Barnett. We just got through day one, started in the same area and then went very different ways, but had similar results. I was in 78th after day one. You were in 105th with 4 fish for 8-8. But like you said, these are the type of tournaments that you like, Brad, because a couple right decisions, a couple quality fish in the boat, and you not only salvage the tournament, you thrive in the tournament. And I know you had some technical issues with the GoPro on your day two, but you turned it around. You had the biggest bag of the day on day two, what, 17, 15?
17-13, I think.
17-13. A couple giants in there and ended up finishing 14th. So kick it back off. Day two, talk a little bit about what your thought process was going into the second day of the most recent Bassmaster Central Open on Ross Barnett in Mississippi.
Well, let me first apologize. Dude, I have recorded every single day, got everything there is all year long, and it's a card issue. Like, I ordered cards as soon as I got home. I've been fighting cards all year. I don't know why those things go bad, but anyway, you find out the hard way that the card didn't work. But day two was, I'm looking for that light bulb to go off, right? I mean, that's what we're always looking for, all of us, and we're trying to figure out just a little light bulb to turn on and light up the room. And I thought I had seen it at the end of day two with that crankbait bite. So I start off day two. I run right back to where I had caught that fish to start the morning. And when I was there in the afternoon, there's no one there, no one. And when I come back on day 2 in the morning, every single little jetty over there has got a boat on it. So I start fishing. Reddington's on the point. Tom Reddington's on the point where I caught that fish, and he's going left. So I just pull in right behind him and I go right. And he's already fished down the bank, but I take off cranking and I crank and I crank. And I go around the point, nothing. And there's a boat over on the other side. And there's a pretty good sized pocket there that's all lining riprap on a park. So I just keep going down it. I'm changing out crankbaits. I'm throwing top water. I'm trying everything to try to figure out how to catch these post spawners that now I believe are sitting out here and acting like post spawners on a shad spawn. Well, no shad, don't see anything going on. I fish the entire pocket through, and I come back to the next point down, and it's a little bitty narrow point. It's real steep, and dude, I'm talking about little. And as I'm coming up to it, I see some activity. Like I actually see a fish kind of jump and some bait fish kind of flicker. And I fire my crankbait up there in front of me and I hook one, and it's a short fish, and it jumps and throws my bait, and I reel it in and I fire right back and I hook another one, and it's another short fish. And as my boat kind of drifts and I'm pulling out from that point to make another cast, I realize another bait hits the water right there. And it's one another competitor of ours, and he's on the other side of the dang point, but he's throwing at the exact same place. So now we're literally casting in the same spot. And I started laughing, and he's like, "What?" And I'm like, all this water and these fish are ganged up on this one little bitty point. I mean, this is not TVA. Why are they all ganged up here? And he said, "I don't know." He said, "I fished here yesterday and I caught like 6 keepers here." And he's throwing a big swim bait. And he's like, "That swim bait's the only thing I can get them to bite." And he said, "I probably caught," I don't know. He said he caught a lot of fish there, but that's the only place he caught them. And so, and he's firing at it. Of course, now he's concerned that I'm there. And I was like, "Hey dude, you can have it. Like I'm going on, And he's like, "Man, I really appreciate it." And I'm just thinking to myself, why are all those fish ganged up in that one little big spot? And the majority of them are little, 10, 12, 13 inches, but he's obviously catching some keepers off of it too. I think he told me he caught one pretty decent one there. Anyway, so I go to the next little point, and there's a couple of little fish on it. Now, it's not as active as the other one. So I'm trying to figure this thing out, and I'm like, that's the shad spawn. So that's the very beginning of the shad spawn, was on those little bitty points. Now, it can also be in those grass vegetation places. They just looked a little different. They weren't rock, and they weren't, a jetty coming out, but it was the same thing. And when I was talking to some people coming home, Castledine had found the same thing. He'd kind of have to let it rest. He was actually catching them with the frog, but it was still the little flicker of the shad, and it was the very beginning. And the majority of the fish that would be there grouped up would be those smaller fish. But if you went through enough of them, there were some keepers there. Anyway, so I start kind of figuring this out. I run this for another hour of the morning. No success whatsoever as far as keepers. So then I go right back to flipping. And I go back to the same area in the reeds where you saw me flipping, and it's just like your area. It's had 1,000 boats. Everybody's caught some fish out of it. I catch a couple of keepers out of it. I lose a couple of keepers out of it. I had passed Keith Combs the first day going down that stretch of reeds.
And he had 19 pounds the first day.
And at the time, he told me, now, I've known Combs a long time. Now, he still could have been feeding me a line of fisherman's soup, but he said he only had 3. And I said I only had 3, and that's what I had at the time. And we just passed each other, and he kept fishing, and I kept fishing. And, he came in with 19 pounds that day. But he was in there fishing pretty heavily. Now, I'm sure he was in other areas of the lake as well, but he'd obviously had some bites there like I had. How much of that 19 he caught there, I don't know. But there was some big fish in that area. So I piddle around, and I'm fishing, and Combs goes there the second day and goes through his little area, and then I go through it after he's gone through. There was one little island of reeds that set out a little bit deeper. They were deeper. There's no doubt. They were a clump of reeds, and it was a little island, and they were deeper. And when I saw them in practice, I felt like that was probably the deal. And I couldn't get bit out of them. I fished them twice in practice. That's how much I thought they were the deal. On day 2, I go back to them, and I get a bite on it. Same thing, just like that other one you watched. About that size of fish too, 3.5, 4 pounder. Freaking get it to the top. It freaking comes loose. So now I'm in this dilemma. I've got 2 fish. It's about 11 o'clock in the morning, which I don't think I'm behind the 8 ball at 11 in the morning with 2 fish, because I think that's probably about what the majority of the field's doing, because even though the weights look good, it's hard to get a bite on this place. Well, not only is it hard to get a bite on this place, it's hard to get a bite, execute, and get the dang thing in the boat. And I know that this is not just me having this problem. So I got an area that I haven't been to in the tournament that in practice I went through, and I don't totally understand what's going on in there. But what I do know is I only had a couple of bites, but my biggest bite that I had in practice was there. So I load up, and it's only, a mile down from where I'm fishing. So I load up and I get down there. And I'm thinking in my mind, it's just like these reeds. It's had 5,000 boats go through it. It's been beat and burned up, This is getting in the middle of day 2, so it's probably pretty beat up. My bite that I had in there in practice was on a BFE with a 1/4 ounce weight. And to describe what this area looks like, it looks more like that area where you got bit with a frog.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reeds at all. It's all that matted, let's call it gator grass. I don't know what it's like. It's like a vine, right? It's gator vine. And it looks like something you would punch or frog. And the bite that I had in practice was with, like I said, with a BFE with just a 1/4 ounce weight, but I had flipped to the edge. But when I flipped to the edge, this fish actually came up and took it from the top. So that fish probably would have eaten a frog. And so I'm trying to decide how I want to attack this thing. I'd spent a lot of time flipping this type of cover, punching it in practice, and had very little success. So I knew I didn't want to punch it. I knew that that's how to cut my big one. So that's how I'm going to go in there. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to flip the edge of it real slow. And so I go in this area, and this area has like little islands of these mats. There's like little islands of it. It's not just a straight wall of it or something like that. I mean, there's literally islands of it. And some of them are about the size of a boat. And that's what I had caught that bigger fish on in practice, which was close to 6 probably. And that was early in practice. So anyway, I go in there and there's no boats. There's nobody there. No one. I'm like, wow, maybe there wasn't much here like what I, had thought before, or I don't understand it. And I get in there and I decide to attack it with the same way that I'd gotten bit in practice. I got a BFE on, 1/4 ounce weight. And I flip. And I get, I don't know, about a quarter of the way in there. And my line just starts moving out real slow. So I tighten up on it, set the hook, and this fish comes up. My conger goes crazy about the size of it. And I lip this fish, and as I grab it, I'm like, man, you better get your hands on this thing. Don't let go. And when I grab it, it's a huge fish. I mean, it's skinny. It's spawned out, but dude, this fish is massive. So I mean, I'm like, man, maybe this thing's a 6 pounder, which this fish ends up being even bigger than that. But I put it in the box, and when I stand up, here's the thing that kind of turned the light bulb on for me. I'm thinking about that bite and how she bit and where she was positioned, right on the edge of that mat. And I look behind me, within 10 feet behind me is the other mat that I got bit by that 6 pounder. So now I've caught a 7 and a 6 within 10 feet of each other, almost 4 days from each other. Like, that's not a fluke. Like, there's something to that. Like, the big ones are here. And I took my live scope and I looked at that mat, and I realized, like I brought it in like where I'm only looking like 20 feet in front of me.
Right.
And those things are thick, dude. They're not like, one strand grows up and then it comes to the top and makes this big canopy. It's a whole bunch of things coming up, right? So they're thick. They're just like those cattails. They're no different. They're the same. And that fish, I'm starting to think, was spawning. And there's a little depression that my boat's sitting in. So like there's a drain right there. And it's small, dude. It's as wide as my boat, but it goes all the way back into this pocket. So I start trying to stay in the drain, flip the edge of the mats that are in the drain. And within 5 minutes, another one. As soon as I pitch in there, it takes off. It's going 100 mile an hour, tighten up on it, set the hook. It's a 3.5 pounder. It comes off.
Oh.
But now I know, because the way that fish bit, because as soon as it went in, it went ding, like real fast and just shot out of there like a cannon. It's a spawner, no doubt about it. Those fish are spawning on the edge of that grass, just like what they were doing on the cattails, except everybody ain't got this one figured out. Like, they don't have this one figured out because they're coming in here, they're seeing the way the cover looks, and they're either punching it or they're frogging it, or winding something down the side of it, which does work. But point being, they're spawning and they're using the edge of this. So now I kind of venture into this and I start kind of getting away from the ditch to see, even if they're up on the flat, on the hill. Sure enough, I see one, dude. Like, it wakes. I don't see the bedfish, but I see the wake where it pushes like a bluegill. So I pitch in there. Now I'm ready for this one. I pitch in there, and as soon as it hits the water, man, boom, my line takes off 100 mile an hour, and I'm just cranking as fast as I can. I set the hook and I catch this one because I was ready the second I flipped in there. And she still was to the trolling motor by the time I got a hook set in her. But it's a 2-pounder, 2.25. And so now I think I've got 4 fish, one of them being that big one. It's only about 12:30 in the day, and I don't weigh in until 4 o'clock. So, like, the one thing I know for sure is I ain't leaving this place. And about that time, 2 boats start coming in, one on one side, one on the other bank. And I turn and start firing at the one that's on my side, just hoping he'll turn around, because I don't want either one of them in there. But
right.
I don't know who's been where. I don't know who's been in here on day one. I don't know who's been starting it. I don't know. I just know that I've been in here for about an hour. Nobody's been in here. But so I don't say anything. I'm just firing that way. And it actually turns that guy around. He turns around and fishes his way back out of the pocket. He never really comes in. But the other guy on the other side, it reminds me of Castledine. He's got a white swim jig on. He's making as long a cast as he can possibly make. He's cranking as fast as he can go. It's Nick LeBrun.
Oh.
And he's coming in and he is smoking water, dude. And he catches one. Pretty good one. I mean, a pretty dang big one, like a 3.5 pounder, a good one. And he coals. And as soon as he coals, he gets back on front deck and he's got the trolling motor back on high. And I'm like, crap. Because all I fished is so far, it's just this little section. And I know that there's more fish here. And he's about to blow through this thing 100 mile an hour, and I'm flipping it.
And it's a 1.25 foot. It's a 1.5 foot deep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, when you go through, there is a mud trail behind your boat.
Right. And I don't want him to burn up this whole thing while I'm sitting here flipping like a Gary Klein speed, And so I reach down, I grab my swim jig. I got one laying on the deck, and I figure he's on that side, I'm on this side. He's going to burn that side, I'm going to burn my side. So I just try to keep pace so that he doesn't get the entire pocket. He goes down the right side. I get about halfway back, and that's really all I want. I don't want the back half because, and maybe I was wrong about this. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but my gut feeling through all of practice and what I had experienced was this was probably the last big wave of spawners that we were fishing for. And I felt like that they didn't go all the way to the back. I felt like that most of the big ones stopped in the first quarter, the first third of an indention of some kind. I felt like that they hit the warm water that they were needing, and they sit down and spawned right there. So once he went on back, I kind of stopped and I got in the middle because there's a lot of islands and stuff like what I was talking about in the middle of this stuff. And then I picked my flipping stick back up and I went back to flipping. And he goes on the back and he catches like 4 or 5 of them. I mean, LeBrun is freaking smoking on them.
Really?
And smoking on them. Now, the fish that he caught, he never cold with once he went back there. And by this point, all I'm thinking is I want another 6-7 pound bite, So I'm back to fishing slow, pitching the edges, just feeling around for a bed fish. And he comes back up, and then out there I am in the middle. So it kind of forces him to make a decision whether he's going to fish over the water that I've fished or he's going to fish over the water he's fished. And he kind of decides to just leave. Now, Nick may have already been smoking that thing every day. I don't know. But what I realized at that moment was a big deal. And not only for my confidence probably allowed me to fish better, but I told you that at the end of day one, I felt like the fish bit better and that I felt like the later flights had them. And back to what you were talking about where you had fished down an area and then somebody comes in and catches a 5-pounder after you've been there. I think that those fish primarily were spawners. I think that's primarily what I know where I was. That's what was going on. And the females, so like if you went through that area in the morning with a spinnerbait or swim jig or chatterbait or whatever, and you're smoking, it probably isn't as productive. You're in there and you're thinking like shad spawn and stuff, and you're not getting bit, and you're putting that stuff down. But what's happening is as the day progresses and the sun climbs, those females are becoming more and more and more aggressive and protective to that bed. And so all the fish, the males and the females. And so everybody's getting more active and generated from the sun, and the boat pressure and all the hooks and stuff are kind of not as important to them at this point, because now they're really, really concerned with spawning. And I think they got really aggressive in the afternoons. And I think that's why. So now he leaves and I go back to flipping the BFE and I'm pulling down some of these stretches, and I get a bite, and it's a 5.5. I mean, it's a big fish. And I get a good hook in this one, put it in the boat. So now I've got 2 big ones. I'm doing the math. I'm like, man, I've got enough to get paid now for sure, because I knew 14 pounds was probably what I needed after day 1 to get a check. So now I'm thinking, all right, what do I need to get in the top 10? And I'm thinking, I just need 1 more bite. And so I'm flipping. I put down the flipping stick and I grab the white swim jig again. Instead of just firing as far as I can fire and wind as fast as I can wind, I start more like you would do a lay down or something. I start coming down the sides of that grass, just really close, like, laying it in there where I can get the angle to where I'm coming down the edge of these mats, these island mats, down the sides of them. And I get another one. I mean, big one. Knock slack in it. I've got this on braid, and I set the hook, turn this fish sideways. It's another 4.5, 5 pounder.
Holy cow.
And I get about 3 cranks on her and she comes loose. It's just part of it. And then I go on down, and it's about an hour later, and I still got a little bit of time, and I get to this lay down, and it's a big lay down, and you can just barely see it. And I swim jig across it 7, 8 times at different angles. I put it down. I reach down, grab the flipping stick, the BFE. As soon as it hits the water, she takes off to the side. Set the hook. It's another big one. So I'm thinking this one's going to get it done. Yeah, that one came off too. So, it's just the way they were biting. I do wish I'd have had braid on my flipping stick. I think it could have made a difference. But at the end of it, it's that one light bulb. And any tournament that I've ever, I won't say ever, but the majority of the tournaments that I have done really well in, it's that light bulb on the event day, right? Like during the event, something happens. I get 1 bite, just like that 7 pounder, and it clues me in. Like, it's like, I start figuring, you put all these pieces of puzzles together, and it's like a light bulb goes off, and then all of a sudden the room that was so dark and you couldn't find anything, now it's just white, bright, and you can see everything and you can tell where everything is.
Yep. Makes sense. Decisions are not hard. You don't have to make any decisions. You just act.
Yeah. Then you start, like, you feel it, like you really know what's going on and you understand. And, we've gone back, I've told you this, the last tournament that I finished 96 was the best practice that I'll probably have all year long. There's something wrong with feeling like you understand all that before the tournament starts, as opposed to understanding that
specifically this time of the year when it's changing early in the year. I feel like if you're going to spend a lot of time in practice, really try to dial something in like summer. Summer is the time to do that, or winter.
So when this event was over, with what all I understood, like I said, I had the biggest bag of the day. It was also the area, because, Nick's in there and he's doing something different than what I'm doing. And he finished second in the event, and he obviously understood it sooner. But he had the second biggest bag of that day. So, a lot of it had to do with the area and what was happening at that moment. I strongly feel that a lot of those big females had really just, that last wave had come in and they were pretty active on spawning in that particular tournament.
So you ended up finishing 14th, great points, moved back up, stayed in it in the Centrals with the Red River and Rayburn left, and moved up to 8th in the overall, 581 points. Third is 615. So like literally one day you went from 35th in the overall to 8th in the overall, and went from 105th in the Centrals to 14th in the Centrals.
Right.
It's pretty strong.
Well, I mean, like I said, that lake's good for that kind of stuff. It's not one of those ones where everybody's catching giant bags. It's hard to catch one, but they do exist. I like tournaments like that.
So the crazy thing is, the area where that went down for you in, and we figured this out before when we were going over the footage for this show. Same area that frog bite that I lost on day one.
Really?
Yeah. Because that pocket and all that stuff is just to the left of that, where you have to go in. You go through the pads and you go in there, and there's those big green things. Like I threw a frog all around there in day one. I was maybe 50 yards from where you ended up catching them on day two, on day one with my frog.
Yeah.
And I never considered flipping the edges of that. I threw a swim jig, I threw a chatterbait, and I frogged it, and I went through it and went, it's a foot and a half. Looks muddy back here, way muddier than I remember it in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And I never put the pieces of the puzzle together. So
Well, like I said, I got the one bite.
Those fish were right there.
A 7-pounder will change your mind. Like it'll open up some doors. But I was fortunate that I saw a big one there in practice too. That's really what kind of helped me tie all that together.
Fishing all of them, Clay. There's 83. They're fishing all of them. Probably down into the 70s now. But yeah, 83. Fishing all of them. Zach Burge missed one, and he's still ahead of me. That's how good he is. But day two, for me, tried to start it off exactly like I did day one. It was very interesting. I saw a comment. Jim said the peeing pattern always has him, like when he catches one. So 5 minutes into the day, I drank a Red Bull. I'd been on the water for an hour and a half. I get behind this dock where I'm like, hey, if I'm going to take a leak, this is the opportune time because I'm in the marina, right?
Yep.
So I'm taking a leak, flip the wacky worm out in the middle of nowhere, and it goes donk and starts swimming off. And I said, I got one. You can't make this stuff up, Brad. There's that road that goes there on the right-hand side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as this is happening, a car stops and starts watching me fish. So I'm, tucked behind in a precarious position, and I've got one swimming with it. So I decide to, I put it up. I don't know how else to say that, Brad, before I set the hook. And in that time, the fish had swam back, and I got a bad hook set in it, and I fought it, and it came up and jumped, and it was a 2 1/4 pounder and jumped off. And I said, that's just bad luck right there. I said, but at least I don't have to pee anymore. So then I catch a 14-incher on a Ned, and it's like just dead in there. There's not as many boats. It's not going. And I tell my I said, man, a bite an hour. I said, as soon as I get 3, I'm out. I was conflicted in starting in there, which is bad when you're conflicted because I thought being boat like 50, I would have a good chance at that grass. But when I was in the grass on day one where I caught them, there were so many boats. I figured there's no way there's any fish left in there. So it's 7 and it's 8 and I catch one at 9 and then it's 9:30 and I'd already lost that one. I only had the one. And then I'm going down a bank and I see kind of that same thing where you can tell there's motion. There's something up there pushing, and it's a good one. And I toss my Ned rig up there and it starts swimming out. And I set the hook, I reel it, and it's just a hard, steady pull out. I mean, 100%. Not a 2-pounder.
Right.
But this is where I messed up. So I had to have a Ned head hook with a weed guard on it, right?
Yes.
And I always use that ram head hook from Big Bite because it's got a real solid hook in it, but it doesn't have a weed guard on it. And because of the rocks and everything that was going on there, if you didn't have the weed guards, it would just be hung in that rock instantly. And it's got a lighter wire on it, and I usually throw my net on 6 or 8, and I had it on 12. So I put more pressure on that fish because it was at the base where the rock met a dock to try to pull it, and I literally straightened the hook out on my net.
Oh, my gosh.
And now I'd fish for 3 hours, and I was like, I have one 14-incher. The grass is absolutely destroyed, and I don't think I can make it happen in the marina. So at 10:30, I put everything up. I pulled out 2 flipping sticks, and I said, I'm not going to go down with the fairy wand in the marina. So we run to the grass. Same exact area I was in before. And I roll up, and there's a cypress on the tip. And I literally, as I'm idling up, I watch 2 boats fish it. One crisscrosses, one goes the other way. And there's 2 or 3 boats on the bank in the grass patch that I want to fish. And there's like 7 boats up in the grass on the other side that I want to fish because the wind's blowing out one side. And then there's 35 boats out on the flat, all dragging Carolina rig. I mean, it is a clown show in there. And I'm like, well, I got bit in there yesterday. I have no other option. So I roll up to the point, drop the trolling motor. It's 1.5 feet deep. My very first pitch to the premium cypress tree that I just watched 2 boats crisscross, both anglers, both co-anglers fish. I pitch a soft plastic in there and it goes boom, slow swimming off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same cypress stump. I found out later, because my co told me later, that like I said on day one, the same cypress stump that Cody caught his 5-pounder off of the day before.
Wow.
So it's a premium spot that a big fish holds.
Yeah.
And I have no clue why those but it bit my stuff. And I got 3 or 4. I mean, I hammered it and it did not move and it boiled and I got 3 or 4 cranks in on it and it just came off.
Yeah.
And I said, I said, I would have rolled up here. It would have given me 2 with a good one. I said, that is not good. I said, that was a fortunate bite, right? It had been fished 20 times. It wasn't even a hard pitch. It was an easy pitch. So then I go down the calm side and don't catch anything. And I said, you know what? I said, I need to go down the windy side of this. I said, if they're spawning, I said, they're still going to be there when it's windy. I said, it's getting a little bit less pressure. Pitch in, same thing happens to you. It goes tick. And when I set the hook right on the edge of that kind of eel grass deal, the mud boil is 6 feet to the right of where I pitched and where I thought my bait was. And I barely even make contact with the sucker.
Yep.
And I get two cranks in on it and it's gone. And I mean, it was a good mud boil. It wasn't a Grinnell. It was a bass. It was a big bass on a bed.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, holy cow. I've been in here 20 minutes and I just lost 2 good ones that I hadn't seen. And I'm like, this is the thing that nightmares are made of. And then I turn to my co and I say, and I really wish we'd started in here. And he said, well, yesterday that morning bite was pretty good. Yeah, thanks. Sorry I had you throwing a shaky head from South Louisiana for the first 3 hours in a marina. So now I know I'm up against it. So I get to one patch I had 2 or 3 bites in, and I'm like, I'm going to work this thing. So I just start power poling down, and I spend 30 minutes on the front side of it. Nothing. So I said, there's a boat 20 yards to the left of me, 20 yards to the right. I said, I know there's fish that live in this grass patch. So I go behind it. Now it's 1 foot deep. Power pole down, fish it for 10 minutes, catch a 3.5. So now I've got 2 with a 3.5. And I'm like, all right, that works. And then I catch another short. Then I go back around to the front. It's probably about the size of the boat, just this kind of isolated reed patch out there in 1.5 feet of water. And I start and my co-angler breaks one off then. Sets a hook, nothing. And I'm like, where was that? Well, I started looking and there's these little holes, probably about the size of a Solo cup. You know what I mean, in the grass?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I have no confidence going down behind these boats, but I know they live in this grass patch. I said, I'm going to hit every single hole in this grass patch because it's the only way I know how to get bit. So I just start. I mean, I'm 10 minutes before I move my power poles up. I've never fished this slow in my life. 1.5 feet deep, muddy water, windy, and I catch it 2.25, 2.5. I'm like, all right, now I got 3, and I look and I've got like 15 more yards of this stuff. So I'm power poled down, and then in those little pads out in front of the boat, bonus fish comes up chasing bait. Fire my bait out there that I'm flipping with, reel. It's about 20 yards in front. It goes heavy. I'm like, dude, it freaking ate it. Jack it. It's a 15-incher. Crank. Perfect. That's number 4. Boat flip it. It comes off in midair at the perfect angle of the boat flip where it goes dead nuts over the trolling motor, over the front deck, over the seat, bounces twice off the back deck, and goes out the back corner of the boat. And I just look and I say, was that a keeper? And my co-angler's like, yeah, no, that was a keeper. I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah, it landed right at my feet twice. Keeper. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what the heck? He's like, yeah, that was wild. I mean, it was a flying fish. It was just like, there's one, set the hook, crank, bow flip, boom, boom, gone.
Yeah.
And I'm just standing there in shock. I'm like, man, I'm like, it wasn't like a career game changer, but it was a 2-pounder.
I had one day one, every bit of 14 inches. I set the hook. She they're this deep.
Yeah.
She comes flying out of the water all the way over my head, off the other side, off the hook, and as it's sailing away, it's sideways. And I'm like, think that one's 14? He's like, yep. In the water it went, and I only weighed in 4 fish that day. It was happening to all of us. It was tough. It was frustrating.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, braid fixes a lot of these problems.
I know. So anyway, it gets even worse than that. So then I continue, I'm making a point of moving 5 feet. Power poles go up, I move 5 feet, power poles go down. And I fished for another half hour. I've got like 45 minutes left to fish. I've already lost 2 good ones and a keeper for sure, and the 2 in the marina. So I'm like, holy cow, I got to catch 2 limits now to catch a limit. But I got that 3.5. I got a 2. I've got a little one. You know, I'm like, I've got 3 for 6.5, which is what I ended up weighing in. I'm like, one more good one gives me 9.5, 10 pounds, and I salvage it, and I finish 50th, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still daubing in those holes on that same patch of grass. I'm serious, Brad. I fished it for an hour and a half. It's the size of the boat. And it goes, don't. And I reel down and I hammer it, and it's a freaking big one. 3.5, 4-pounder.
Wow.
And I get its head up, and it's in that hole, and I get it out over the first little reed head deal, and I'm in the winch mode where I'm not stopping. You know, they thrash that shallow. They don't swim or fight. They're just, and its head's out of the water, and it's thrashing, and I'm like, that's the big one right there. And I get it halfway back, and it's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I like looked at my co, and I said, that was it. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, that was the fish I needed to save my tournament from bad decisions, lost fish. And I ended up having 9 keeper bites on day 2. And I landed 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And of the 6 I lost, I know I saw 3 of them, and they were all over 3 pounds. And the other one was a little one.
Yeah, I mean, that's
like,
an opportunity.
I was just
You're
like
generating
shell
the
shocked.
bites.
Like I wasn't even upset. I was like, I made the right decisions, but I didn't, because guess who I saw all in there in day 2? I mean, I saw Chris Jones, I saw Gleason and all that, but Cody Bird was in there. And Cody Bird, this is where I think I learned a lot, Brad. Cody Bird, I'm sure, and I haven't talked to him. I don't know. I just know he's a flipper. He's been around for a long time. He's a legend. He's a great angler. He had expanded it. So I had a 40-yard stretch on either side of that point with a couple patches of grass. I knew where they were at.
Mm-hmm.
When I went in there on Monday and got all those bites, why the hell did I not say, all right, let's see what's within a mile of this either side? Why did I just say, all right, here's a good spot I can get bites on, and then idle out of there? Why did I not try to expand that area? Because I watched what Cody Bird was doing. He was wearing a bright red and white Skeeter jersey.
Yeah.
He was a 1/4 mile and an 1/8 of a mile, like all within sight still, but I just had the little 3 patches. He had 20 patches.
Yeah.
He spent his entire time in there. Every time I was in there, which was 3-4 hours a day on day 1 and 2, he was still in there doing the same thing. The only time I saw him was when he made a rotation, and then he'd power idle back and he'd make another rotation. He'd power idle back, he'd make another rotation. I mean, dude, I made bad decisions and got out flipped in that.
One of the things that, you know, like you talked about, like at the very end of it, when you didn't have hardly anything left to go to, and you're like, it was only the size of a boat, and I fished it for 20 minutes. Like, I was doing that on day 1. So like when we got all of those boats on those reeds and stuff, the only way that I could fish and felt like, you know, I just had to fish what was in front of me, but I literally just picked every single, I mean, my trolling motor is on crawl. Like it's like you say, you're fishing as slow as possible because the fish are congregated in a very small area on a very small lake. And, you know, it just, and like I said, they're getting more aggressive as the day goes on. As the sun warms up, they're becoming more and more aggressive. So, I mean, yeah, you can pull up to a cypress tree that 2 boats just fished, and if you make that right cast, you know, she can bite.
I felt confident.
That was a big part of this tournament. So, like, if you talk to guys like Cody, I promise. I mean, I fished around him a bunch, flipping and everything else, and I bet you he had his trolling motor just going. He was picking every single thing apart, and then it would take him so long to go through stuff. You know, he'd make a rotation through it, but yeah, I mean, that's what that tournament ended up being about for sure.
But if I, instead of go try to catch fish out of the marina, see, I'm very conflicted onto if I made a mistake, because if I, instead of spending 3 hours in the marina for one 14-incher, go straight to that, who knows what I flip up in the morning.
Yeah.
So
here was my deal with the marina. This is what I disagree with, but it's your style of fishing. So, I mean, I didn't want to go in there. If I was going to go in the marina, and I wanted to, I told you in the beginning of this deal, and it could have played. It could have. But if it was going to play for me, it was going to have to play power fishing. I mean, they were going to have to eat that one knocker, and they were going to have to eat that swim jig or chatterbait on the docks, or I wasn't going to catch them in there because I didn't want to take the time because the flipping bite was good and it was big fish. And I didn't want to take the time to sit around and mess with throwing at poles and docks. And, to me, that just wasn't the deal.
But I didn't feel like I could be comfortable flipping grass till I had that limit on day 1. But so here's in hindsight. So we're idling in on day 2. And it occurred to me, well, if the guy that I fished with today had Cody yesterday, because I didn't, he didn't talk about any of that stuff. Really good dude from South Louisiana. We really didn't talk much at all that day. But we're idling in, and I realized, well, if he fished with Cody yesterday, he was boat 170 something. And the reason I started in the marina was because I didn't think there's any way I could get to that grass at boat 170 without being boat 10. So I said, hey, let me ask you a question. I said, did you guys start back there in that grass yesterday? This is after the day's over, right? We're idling in. He goes, yes, sir. I said, what it look like boat traffic back there? He goes, dude, it was the craziest thing. He said, everyone was out fishing the pads. He goes, we were about 170. He said, Cody idled right past him up on the bank, and there was no one on the bank.
Oh, my gosh.
I said, you're kidding. I said, the same stuff that we fished today. He's like, yeah, exact same stuff. I said, did it go down? He goes, it went down early. He goes, that one you got in the box, he goes, he was calling them identical clones to that pretty early in the morning.
Wow.
And that was just a bad call on my part. I mean, I called you distraught. I was like, there's no way I'll get it. There's too many bites in there. Everyone's going to be in there. I'll be the 10th boat. I'll be spun out already because of boat pressure. And I didn't go in there. And he just went and put his head down, and everyone stayed out. Now, granted, that's what I called him out on day 2. That's where the 25-pound bag and stuff came. But, I grossly miscalculated the boat pressure on day 1 in there.
Clay's asking if we all talked about it. I didn't talk to Matt about it, but Upshaw and I had talked about it some that week. And so, yeah, I think that Upshaw and I definitely knew that we were both going to start in there day 1. Man, there's been a lot of fish caught out of that place. A lot.
College tournament, they caught him in there last week. Jay Brainerd.
I didn't know about it, but the Elite Series, everybody, it goes down in there. And it was too strong to just walk away from, because if they were going to bite right there, you're just going to stay put and not leave. But it didn't.
I'm a big trend guy, Brad, and I think it's very interesting. I'm mirror imaging what I did last year. So last year, my first 4 events, I'm right in the same exact place I was last year. My first 4 events last year were 111th, 64th, 48th, and 43rd. Got better every single of the first 4. My first 4 events this year, 49th, 69th, 78th, 102nd. They're literally mirror images of each other.
They are. It's amazing.
It's crazy how that works. So I don't know. I have to go through the.
Where did you end up finishing in this event?
102nd out of 230.
Okay.
Or 225.
I know it seems bad when you put it up there, dude, but it's way better than 150th or 160th. That's like a whole nother tournament. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a big difference in the points at the end of the year. If you can just stay out of those terrible finishes.
But I'm also to the point where we just went to the East Coast 4 times in a row. We've been to Florida, we've been to Tennessee, we've been to Virginia and Mississippi. And dude, I haven't made a dime. I'm like hemorrhaging. Like that's the actual honest truth of it. And I look back and I'm like, every single tournament, I was like either had them on for top 15 or, I've been right there, and it's the same thing that happened last year to me. And then I went, 3 out of the last 4, but it's kind of discouraging right now. I mean, like really discouraging. Like you sit there and I was actually sitting there this morning going, is this worth it? And I know last year you ended up not fishing all of them. You fished the Centrals because you were still in it, but you were out of it for the overall. But
right.
I don't think I'm out of it for the overall yet. Do you?
No, I do not.
I've got 506 points, and right now 5th place is 594.
No, you're not out of it at all. We still got 5 tournaments left. We fished 4 of the 5. We're not quite to the halfway point. So we're close, but we're not there. I think that it's going to take less points this year because there is, 79 or 80 of us? Is that what we decided?
83.
Fishing all 83 guys fishing all of them, where last year there was half that, and the year before that there was half that. So the more guys that are fishing, you would think that the numbers would be higher, but it appears right now, looking at it, that it's going to take less points to finish in the top in the overall than it has in years past. Yeah. How's that even possible? You would think with more guys, it would take more.
Dude, I don't know. But I mean, I was looking at it, and like, this is probably the first time since I really seriously started doing this. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. In 2018, so it's only been like 4 or 5 years that I'm just like, it's like depressed about it, man. Like, I've just left a lot on the table. I'm like, dude, is this freaking worth it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know obviously, like in my heart, it has to be, or else you wouldn't do it. And I'm not saying I'm going out there and just going through the motions right now, but it's like, dude, it's depressing. Like, what do I have to show for the last month?
Well, you know, like I said when we started, I mean, I knew what this reality was, and 225 boats fishing for 3 spots, dude, is the most complicated thing there is right now in the fishing industry. The open field 15 years ago, you were really only fishing against about half the field. The field is much, much, much better now than it was 10 years ago. Like, it's not even close. And there's just so many. Back then there was 100, 150 boats maybe at the first tournament of the year, maybe 175 if you had a really good lake like Rayburn or something, but it would drop off. And by the time we would finish the last open in a division, there'd be less than 100 boats.
Yeah.
Now, they've done some things to change that. That was the big reason why they put the Classic up for every single winning spot, and you had to fish all, because that kept guys from dropping out, because they like to dangle that carrot, and that carrot works. But the overall strength of the field has improved so much, you know, since I came back to start this deal. I mean, the first year, man, it's guys that can catch them, and there's 225 of them out there, and it's tough. And you try not to focus on each individual finish, because you can't. You just got to look at it at the long haul at the end of the year. And I promise you, if you can do that and stay more level about it with your emotions, it'll work out better for you at the end of the year, because you'll be able to look back and say, hey, dude, it's amazing what a first or second or third place will do for you as far as how you feel about things.
I mean, are these things fun for you right now?
No, but I know that one 3-day event and one more trophy from that place, you know, it changed everything. And it'll change the way you feel about it. And it's very doable. I mean, it's very doable. To sit and think that it's not. I mean, if I change a couple of things in this event, I mean, what they weighed in on that final day, if it's doable, dude. And not every week's going to be that way, but there are some that come down the pipe, and it can happen.
But how long do you stay in there until one comes down the pipe? How's it not then just like an addict going to one more? Well, it'll be the next one. It'll be the next one. It'll be the next one.
That's part of competition, man.
Yeah.
You gotta stay mentally tough, and you got to hang in there and keep swinging.
Because I mean, someone was talking about, oh, you got to love tournament weeks, and I was like, I would rather be nowhere else. Like, it's where I feel like I belong, where I want to be. I said, I absolutely despise every single second of the competition.
Do you?
Like, I do not find any of it enjoyable. I'll have moments of exhilaration, but the entire week as a whole, I feel like I literally feel myself aging the last 2 or 3 years going into every single one of these.
It'll do that.
Like, I don't want to sound like I'm bitching or complaining here. What I want to I just want to talk. This is a conversation that like me and you would have.
Right.
On the phone driving home after I finished 100th or after you finished 100th or something like that. But it's like I just feel like energy getting sucked out of me during the competition days and then there's like release valves, right? Like, okay, I survived this day. If I don't catch another fish, I've survived. It doesn't mean I'm quitting, or it doesn't mean I'm laying off of the gas, but it's just a level of anxiety or stress that I didn't even know exists until that pressure's relieved. So, you know, for me, that was the 5 fish on day one at Thousand Islands. It was a 6-pounder to fill my limit out. It could happen at various different parts of every day. But like,
and it just takes that pressing, you've got to keep pushing. And that's what it takes to catch that 6-pounder at the end of the day is, you can't give up. You got to keep pressing, pushing for more and more and more. And it's not just you, dude. It's everybody. Even the guys that are leading the points in the top 2 or 3, it feels the same for them. Like, it's not easy. Like, it's a struggle.
I'm not saying I've had a bad year. I mean, out of that, like I've had, I finished in the top half of the field in every single Open over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in the top half every single Open.
Yeah. But it doesn't feel good because you're not succeeding. You're not achieving what your goals are. And that's what I say. I mean, dude, this got to be one of the toughest things out there because you're looking for 3 spots out of 225.
And I'm not saying I'm burned out. I'm not at all burned out with it. Like, the fire is still there. The drive is still there. It's just, I don't know whether it's like, you see what I'm saying? I'm trying to be like, what is reality versus what is something that you just have to push through and realize that there's a goal like at the end of the trail.
Right.
And at what point are you just like spinning your wheels? I'm not there yet, but I'm just saying.
I think I take my mind off of, and I'm pretty good at this, dude. I take my mind off of exactly where my finishes are. And I try to get involved in the week of being there, of trying to figure out the puzzle. I try to enjoy each week the little things, whether it's, what we cook for dinner at night or whether we're filming some stuff and just jacking around or whatever little moments there are to try to enjoy that's funny, that I can take away that don't really revolve around whether I do well or I do bad. Because over the course of a lifetime, this is where I want to be. I mean, I don't want to be doing real estate or plumbing or whatever. I want to be doing this. So good or bad, this is what I want to be doing. So I've got to enjoy the moment of being there. And it can't all just revolve around whether a 5-pounder stays hooked up or doesn't stay hooked up. I enjoy the process of trying to figure out the fish. I look for those light bulb moments like what happened last week. And those are they don't happen for me every day.
Yeah,
I wish I was Jason Christie, and they just happened more times than not, but it's never been that way for me. I've always had to work to get those damn things, but some days the sun does shine. And when they do, man, it's worth it for me.
Like that little moment where I caught the third one and I realized I've got 10 more yards of this grass patch and I've got 2 hours left to fish. Like, this might happen. There's like that brief window where you're like, that you get that little, or when you catch that second big one, that 5-pounder gets in the boat and you're like, holy cow, dude, I might go from 105th to a top 10. Those are the things that I guess you kind of have to hang your hat on. Little victories.
That's right.
And then
that and the other things that don't really have to do with tournament fishing. Like I really enjoyed the morning I woke up in Cherokee and you were upset about some stuff. And I was like, Panger, why don't you just get in your boat and go fishing? I enjoy stuff like that as I screened from the top balcony of my bedroom.
I have a tendency to really dwell on stuff, don't I?
No, not
you
bad.
Think so?
No, you just analyze everything, right? It's just your personality. It's not right or wrong. You just got to figure out what works for you. But like the fact that you go in a marina and practice and this is something that I would never do. And you were just talking about it. You were like, I knew that I had to catch 5 or 6 fish to catch a keeper. So for every 5 or 6 fish, I've got to catch 20, 25, 26 fish before I can catch a limit. Like I've never gone in someplace and thought that way, because just like what happened on that dock where you thought you were going to have to be there for hours, you end up catching 2, 3 keepers right there. And to me, that's more how it works a lot of times. It's not, I got to burn through exactly what just happened in practice to number count. But that's how you analyze things. You're very analytical, you know. You told me, you know, at the end of the year, you know how many fish you lost on this hook and that hook. And, you know, I think that part's good. I think sometimes I don't analyze some of that stuff. I should have never, ever, ever, ever been flipping fluorocarbon this week. And I know this from experience. I have learned this lesson. But
did it cross your mind in the tournament at all, or was it something afterwards where you were like, what the heck?
It might have crossed my mind a time or two, but I didn't sit down and do it.
All right, we're going to take our final.
All it would have taken was pulling another rod out of the box. And
you had one rigged?
I'm sure. I got a flipping stick with braid tied on. All I had to do was put a BFE on it and get with it. I didn't do it. I wish I would have.
We're going to take our final break. We'll wrap things up when we come back. BTL on a Tuesday, breaking down Ross Barnett, and then we got a little psychological deal there that I didn't plan on going down. But, hey, we went down that path. So we'll be back after this.
Combining one of the most popular hook styles with Gamakatsu's beefier Superline offering, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend delivers the strength necessary to target big fish in heavy cover. Well suited for braided line and heavier fluorocarbon, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend is built using stronger Superline wire that allows anglers to easily fish a finesse worm around heavy cover. The round bend offers a larger bite area, perfect for any worm presentation, while increasing your hookup ratios. The newly enhanced Z-Bend holds your plastics on the hook longer, reducing the number of pull-offs and reducing damage to plastics. Available in 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, this is the most durable worm hook, designed for heavier lines that hold your bait on longer.
Preparation is key to success. And that preparation starts well before you ever hit the water. You're only as strong as your connection to the fish, and your line is that critical connection. Confidence in your line every minute of every day on the water is a necessity, and failure, it's not an option. Sunline makes the fluorocarbon, nylon, and braided lines to give you the strength to guarantee your confidence.
Vibrating jigs are a great choice for any time of year, and the Kamikaze Swim-On is a perfect match for any vibrating jig. 2 sizes and the unique tail design gives it a bait fish profile and a great swimming action for realism. There are 17 colors. See them all at bigbitebaits.com. The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Welcome back, BTL. On a Tuesday, wrapping things up. I just want to put a little asterisk next to it. I realize that's a first world problem there, Bradley. Not catching fish.
Yeah.
Important
in the aspect of the
that
world
are going on in life. But, I mean, heck, we all have things that we try to dedicate ourselves to, are committed to, spend a lot of time on. And
well, it's our life.
It just happens to be fishing.
Yeah, it's our life. It's what matters to us more than anything. I mean, as hard as we work at marketing and social media and the things that we do, at the end of the day, I know for me personally, the most important thing is catching them. So it's tough, dude. It is, and it's tough on everybody. So you're not in that boat alone. I promise you that.
Up next, Oneida. We both had some learning experiences there last year, but similar for me to the James River. I'm really looking forward to getting back on that place in a couple months.
Are you staying with us?
I thought that was the plan.
Okay.
I don't have a place yet.
Dude, so the place that we stayed last year that I love so much
has to be booked.
It's booked.
Yeah, it's probably been booked for a year since it's 4th of July.
I found one better.
You found one better?
Yeah. Yeah. On the water. I think there's 2 sides to the water on this one. I think like we're going to be in the bay, and dude, it's better. And I think, there's room for 3 boats on the dock. She said, like, it's on the water. It's a cabin. It's kind of like a bunk bed. The bed situation is not going to be the greatest at all, but there's 4 beds. So I think we got all 4 of us there. I think Sukup will be with us. So I think all 4 of us will be in this little cabin. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Interesting.
And we're like a mile from the boat ramp too. Like takeoff boat ramp.
So we can just roll over there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm leaving my stuff in the water all week. I'm going to enjoy it like I did last year.
Yeah, so am I. You're the one who kind of got me into that in the past. I had never really done that, and I did that with you last year, a couple of places, and it makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, and Hank Weldon, we got to make sure that we can keep walleye during the week because they have the rule no live welling fish during practice. We just want to live well.
We called
Chris
Chris and asked him, and we were like, "Hey, because if not, we're gonna have to put these things in our coolers." And
yeah,
he was like, "Dude, you can keep a walleye."
Yeah, so we kept walleye every day. That was the deal. Everybody that caught a walleye, if you caught one, and some days you wouldn't catch one, but Panger might catch 2 or 3, or I might catch 2 or 3.
Here's the deal. During official practice, I did not eat them. I ate them during.
Oh yeah, because you got that deal where you won't eat fish.
Yeah, but dude,
is that changing?
No. Yeah, it's changing even worse. We might have an issue because if you remember what happened at Oneida last year. I came in 3 minutes late and thought I was 7 minutes early.
Yeah, but you didn't eat any fish.
But I filleted them.
You should have just ate them, and you would have been 3 minutes on time.
No, that doesn't work like that. I think I think that it. Even though I didn't eat them, I think that was too close.
Dude, eating walleye has nothing to do with your finish.
If we're there Friday or Saturday or Sunday, I'll eat them. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's all you guys.
God, you got to clean them for us because you're the best cleaner.
I am pretty good at cleaning a walleye.
You are. God, they're so good. God, they're so good. That is I'm so excited to go up there. That is our next event, right?
Yeah.
I'm
headed to Minnesota.
I booked the house yesterday. I'm excited about it. It's a little cabin, same thing they own next to their house. Like, it's going to be perfect.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Dude, Brad, I learned, I don't even know if you realize that you're teaching people, but I learned so much during these things when you break down the water and kind of your mindset and what you see as important and not important, dude. I think that's really good stuff.
Well, I mean, I think it's good that we get to critique each other, things that we see that we do right, things that we see that we think the others have done wrong. I mean, dude, hindsight is 20/20, and I look at the marina just like you and wish I hadn't spent an hour and a half in there the first morning and then been over there where there were fish being caught. But the reality is that it could have gone. And
it did go down. I caught a limit out of there by 10 the first morning and was thrilled and just didn't get a big bite outside of it. I worked to my game plan. I was pleased with that. I would have done that again.
I mean like day one leader play. Like
yeah,
23, 24, 25 pounds out of the marina. That could have happened.
Yeah.
And that's what, that's what we were
I
saying.
kept him honest. I mean, I threw a swim bait or a big spinner bait or something in there every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't just dink and dunk. All right. Tomorrow, day 4 on day 3 with Frank Scalish. I have absolutely no idea what he's going to talk about, but after the last couple bangers, I'm sure it'll be a good one. If you message me about a code, a Denali code, I will respond today with that code for 30% off. Even if you weren't one of the first 3, I might be able to slide you in there. So if you want to
I got to throw this in there right now because it's going viral. Castledine just released a video yesterday.
I watched that this morning.
Over 10,000 views already. Dude, there are some good drugs in that comments room right now. I mean, some good drugs being taken by people watching that video. They either don't understand everything that's going on and commenting, or I don't know what some people are thinking, but like, I don't know what your opinion was on it, but it's
he got cut off.
He got cut off bigger.
He got cut off by a high school team.
And then
the guy knew he got cut him off and wouldn't look at him.
I mean, it's like somebody pulling in front of you at Walmart when they're like 6 deep in line, and somebody just walks and right in front of you are three people up, and then you say something to them.
No, it's worth a watch. I mean, I'm sure that guy who cut him off has had to have watched that already.
I'm hoping. I can't wait till that guy comments or somebody.
The fact that Todd just stood there and didn't say anything was baller.
It was.
But yeah, that's on Todd.
With 2 kids in the boat, like that's how we're going to teach our young people how to deal with.
I thought Todd handled it remarkably well.
I know. I'm talking about the boat captain.
Yeah, that wasn't. And then he had the deal. I didn't know you could stand on it. And
yeah, are high school kids allowed to use platforms to sight fish off of?
I don't know. I don't know the rules on that.
I don't know.
It
looked like 1985 Lake Fork fishing to me is what it looked like.
There you go. This has been BTL on a Tuesday. We'll talk to everyone tomorrow.